grant recipients, hello, thank you for joining us today. And also thank you for everyone who's not currently in receipt of Climate Challenge Fund grant. We understand there's quite a few organisations who've joined this webinar to find out more about promoting their climate change activities. So welcome to all of you as well. So firstly, an introduction of what to expect from today's webinar. So we're going to give you an outline of the webinar first. So we're going to cover by an introduction to the Climate Challenge Fund for those of you who aren't grant recipients. Secondly, we'll be introducing some communications during COVID-19. The third point we'll cover, introduce our workshop activities and also link to the resources that we've got on our website. Next, we'll be covering how to draw up a really strong message for your project and also the key thing and ask, which is what you want people to do. Then we'll cover creating stuff. This is all the kind of resources and promotional material for your project and hopefully outline some really good templates we've got available for you there. Next, we'll be looking at how to actually get the word out about your project. This is the actual promotion. This is telling people about the amazing work that you do. And then how to look after participants on their engagement with your project. This is super important so that both yourselves and people who are becoming involved with your project know what to expect and it's a happy experience for everyone. We'll cover some contacts for the session today so you can easily get in contact with us. We'll have a very quick wrap up of the main points from the session. And then finally, we'll look at a question and answer session right towards the end. Please do type your questions as you go along through the session as you think of them though. My colleague Ali will be kind of looking to answer those where possible as we go along. So we'll do live answering where possible. Where that's not possible, we'll draw together all those questions and have them asked by Ali to me at the end of the session. And then please do ask any additional questions you've got in that Q&A session at the end as well. Thank you for those who've introduced your project and how people can become involved in the work you do so far in the text chat field. Keep going with that, keep kind of networking throughout the session and commenting on how people can get involved with the marvellous work you do. So about the Climate Challenge Fund, what does it do? Well, it's empowering community-led action on climate change in Scotland. That's it in a nutshell. What is it? Well, it's a Scottish Government programme. It was launched in 2008 and over 1,150 projects across all 32 local authorities have been awarded CCF grants. You're looking at a very substantial amount of funding exceeding 111 million in total. And if you're looking at previously funded projects, what have they actually done? Well, they've helped communities to reduce their reliance on car travel, they've cut waste, they've helped people to grow local food, and they've decreased energy use in both homes and community buildings. You can find out more about the fund at keepscotlandbeautiful.org/CCF. And there's a really neat interactive map on our Climate Challenge Fund website as well. You can access that directly from the homepage. It shows all the funded projects on the map. You can search by local authority, or you can also search by different themes of projects. So if for example, you're interested in food, if it's energy, it's travel, you can sort by those different projects. The map also shows, when you click on each description, a summary of a project and ways you can get in touch, such as social media feeds or more information on our website. So I do encourage you to check that out if you're not a current grant recipient. And if you are a current grant recipient, see what's going on in your area. So we also have training and support available through the Climate Challenge Fund. It's not simply just a grant programme, you get training and support as well. We at Keep Scotland Beautiful, we've been proud to manage the Climate Challenge Fund on behalf of the Scottish Government since the fund started in 2008. And we have staff in our climate change team that support those applying for grants and also grant recipients, those awarded grants. We also offer a load of free training and events to support communities across Scotland to build their capacity to tackle climate change. So if you're not a CCF grant recipient, you can still access all of this support. We'd usually deliver this by a lot of different physical training sessions throughout Scotland, but we're delivering it online, obviously, during the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, find out more on our website. I mentioned Keep Scotland Beautiful earlier. Well, who are we? We're an independent environmental charity, and we work in 4 main areas, which you can see here. So that's sustainable development education, local environmental quality, sustainability and climate change, and environmental services. And more's available on our website if you're interested in finding out more about any of those. So communications during COVID-19 is our kind of next session here. Some general tips on your climate change communication during COVID-19. I think it's always important to be sensitive in your communications to take into account what's happening in the world. That's super important to do that all the time. And the same also goes for your promotional activity during COVID-19. You can absolutely still talk about climate change. That's actively encouraged. But I'd like to share some examples of effective communications which we've seen going on. So you might want to think about promoting your activities which are tackling climate change and COVID-19. So Bike for Good in Glasgow did this, for example, to great effect. They shared news all over social media and on their website about their programme of bikes for key workers, free loan bikes, which also included lights, panniers and helmets for full get-up so that key workers could get to their jobs without using public transport and the risk there, so they could self-isolate on their bike, but also without using a car, so without having the emissions generated by a car. So a fantastic initiative there. We've also had a variety of CCF projects who've been upcycling equipment for the NHS, so some great work there as well. And a variety of projects have been actually distributing food to the local communities and self-isolation packages as well, and including information on how to counter food waste and things in that too. So some really good work going on there. The second kind of point you might want to think about is promoting activities that are supporting your local community during COVID-19, but again, also tackling climate change. So there's great work going on all the time. There's no doubt about that with climate challengement projects. The Gate Church Carbon Saving Project in Dundee, they've run a community fridge since last year when it was launched. The community fridge works by taking produce which would have been thrown out by large supermarkets and businesses, etc. It takes delivery of that and makes it available for free to the local community. Why is that story so poignant at the moment? Why is that so effective? Well, I think most of us have experienced difficulty perhaps getting the usual food, the usual stuff we would during COVID-19. So Gate Church making that food available for free for the local community is an absolute win-win situation, and it's a really good story to tell. It shows how tackling climate change, these type of projects also actively support the local community. It's also important to share positive news stories. There's an awful lot of bad news out there an awful lot of the time. And it's important that we build a view of the world that post-COVID could be a fantastic place to live in. If people want to live in that world, they're actively motivated and encouraged to make the changes we need to. So, for example, could improvements in air quality we've seen during COVID be made permanent if we had more home working for those of us lucky enough to be able to do that, and increased active travel and better public transport after COVID? Is that something we could work towards? That kind of starts to fit into the green recovery story as well there. So share stories about moving towards that type of really positive world. It's a really important thing to promote things people can actually do. So it's great sharing stories of what's being done and things, but what can you offer people they can actively get involved with? So we've seen some great work by climate challengement projects and others in sharing online courses accessible from home. Some people have got lots more time at home during COVID-19. So sharing things that they can learn about, be it climate change, be it how to repair a button on a favourite shirt or something, how to grow at home, that type of thing can be really powerful. If you want to find out about more ways, general tips on climate change communication, Climate Outreach, they have a full recorded webinar and they have a guide on this available on their website via the link outlined here. All of these slides are available on our website in the form of a PDF document, so you'll be able to click all of the hyperlinks and go directly through to the links. So climate challenge fund projects communicating during COVID-19. What have they done? Well, physical gatherings simply haven't been possible. So CCF projects have adapted by providing a variety of practical support online, which I touched on earlier. Some good examples of that. Well, they've been doing webinars, one-to-one tutorials, recorded video, film showings, and discussion sessions. We're going to give some individual examples of each now, and might be something that you want to deliver for your project at some point. So regular workshops via webinars. Rig Arts are a fantastic example here of offering sustainable fashion tips and skills through their Fixing Fashion project, and they've done this through Zoom. There's also one-to-one advice available. So Remode and Lochwinnock have offered closing repair support on one-to-one via Zoom. People kind of book a slot by email, say what they're looking for support on, and then they have an expert fixer which helps them with that project. It could be something, again, as small as putting a button back on something, or it could be a much larger kind of clothing repair project. We've also seen some absolutely amazing updates and demonstrations given by projects. So Furzo Grows, they've been giving quite long updates about their project and the background to it, which are absolutely fantastic. Tron St Mary's, they've been giving planting and growing advice, and that's been much more concise, much more kind of bite-sized. Both of those kind of different approaches work, and it's great to see them. You can access those via Facebook. You could also think about doing stuff like that via Facebook Live. Film showings. Aaron Ike Savvy have been advertising weekly film showings on Facebook, which you can register for. You get to see a great climate change documentary, and then you actually get the ability to discuss it later afterwards online with other people. I think that discussion aspect is really important at the current time when people maybe don't have that face-to-face contact. They want to reach out and speak with other people and stuff and discuss things. So it's great to see this type of thing happening. I touched on discussion just there. There are specific discussion and networking centres sessions being run by a number of different projects, such as the Salisbury Centre in Edinburgh. So these guys have been running actual climate change focused discussion sessions in the last few weeks. There's other projects running that, such as Shrub in Edinburgh as well. Again, Zoom's been popular for them. So communicating with us at Keep Scotland Beautiful during COVID, how can you do that? We're lucky that many of our resources were already online on our website, but we've added kind of more online options so you can communicate better with us. So you can engage with us through our training webinars. They always have a Q&A session at the end, and we're delighted to also be able to offer sessions from partners, and we had Zero Waste Scotland on just the other week. We have a brand new grantee forum for Climate Challenge Fund grant recipients hosted on Microsoft Teams. If you've not already got access to that, please do ask your development officer. It's an absolute goldmine of information for different projects who are sharing their experience and the kind of things they're doing. We've also got our social media feeds, our standard Facebook page and Twitter feed, but we've also relaunched our Scottish Climate Change Community Facebook group, which is run by Keep Scotland Beautiful. Please do join that group. You can directly post your news and updates and chat with others interested in the same area as you. And obviously your development officer is still there for you. Do contact your development officer directly with queries. You can also give me a shout about direct marketing queries. We offer some support for you to promote your project as well. We would love to promote your news and your events through our Climate Challenge Fund channels. Here's a story from Resolve Recycle One. They sent us details of their swap shop startup training. So please do send us details of things you've got going on, things people can join, things people can be involved with, interesting news. And what do our promotional channels include? We've got our Climate Challenge Fund website for news stories, and we've also got a newsletter. I outlined our Facebook page, our Twitter feed earlier. Please do tag us in all your news so that we see it. And I mentioned our Scottish Climate Change Community Facebook group as well, so share stuff there. And you can contact myself. That's my email address just there, but we'll kind of summarise all our contacts together right at the end of the webinar. So workshop activities and further resources is the third thing we're going to talk about today. Number one is the Climate Challenge Fund website. Here you can access support to promote your project. That's kind of our number one kind of fountain of information, if you like. The web page looks like this just at the moment. What does this section of the website contain? Well, number one, it's got links to further guidance and templates, including branding support, which we'll go over later. It's got a summary of all the training events that we'll run and links to all the resources, like all the stuff from today we'll be outlining. It's got my direct contacts as well, if you want an easy way to get those, they're on that web page too. And you can access the web page at the web link below. And again, you'll be able to click on the PDF of this webinar, and it will take you directly to that web page. So we've got a number of supporting activities for the workshop today, and I'm going to kind of outline these just now. Number one is the project progress check. This is going to help you identify areas where you're confident, but also areas where you think you might need to improve. And there's kind of a prompt to say, hey, go back and have a look at the project progress check throughout each section of the webinar. We also, believe it or not, have a bingo session. We used to run this as part of a physical workshop, which we ran in locations around Scotland in the physical training events in 2019, 18 and 17. You're kind of doing that already as you're actually typing more about your project, and you're introducing yourselves and you're saying one way people can get involved. But we would love you to continue this conversation in the CCF Grantee Forum. After the webinar, we'd also love to see your comments on our social media feeds that I outlined earlier. So do share what you're doing, how people can get involved. You'll be surprised how much difference that can make in getting the word out about your project. We'll have an elevator pitch exercise. This will really help you to kind of hone down your message and ask for your project. We'll have a circles of influence exercise, which will help you define who exactly you're communicating with. This is a really key thing. And when you're getting your message out there, if you don't know who you're communicating with, you're going to have trouble in promoting your activities. We've got press release templates, so there'll be a chance to write a press release later with your projects. And we have an engagement planning tool. So hopefully when we have a chance to get out and about and physically promote stuff again at events, this will help you kind of decide what to take to those events, and even if an event might be worth going to at all. And a participant journey. So it's super important to create a plan for people who are engaged with your project so the experience is a positive one. So with all of these activities, they're available on our website. So directly through the link there. Again, that link is available in the PDF we'll be sharing after the session and on our website. I think the key thing to say about all these activities is it's something to have a look at with your project staff, with your volunteers after the session today, to go through each of the activities, or maybe pick out one or two you're particularly interested in. Have a web call with someone, circulate it by email, and say, okay, what do you think about this? Let's have a look at this together. Let's develop an elevator pitch for our project. Let's look at the circles of influence and see who we're communicating with. So it's important to kind of go away, do that with your projects, get everyone involved so everyone's singing from the same sheet. So your message and ask for your project. This is one of the key things before you promote your project, is you want to be able to establish a message and an ask. You want to do this as soon as possible, ideally. But you'll also need to review it regularly to see if some things kind of get tweaked along the way. What are you going to include in your message? Well, you're going to want to mention who you are. You're going to want to say what you're doing. You're going to want to cover when, where, and why you're doing it. And then for your ask, this is the thing where you say to people, hey, we want you to do this. This is available. It's great. So you want to think about, what do you want people to do? And then another really important thing, how can they actually become involved? it's all very well having a really strong message and an ask, but unless people actually have a route to doing something, signing up for a newsletter, signing up for a home visit, hopefully in the near future, or indeed joining a webinar session, they might lose interest in your project quite quickly. So how they can become involved is really important. Top tips here. For all of you who are current Climate Challenge Fund grant recipients, if you require any clarification on these points, do check your CCF application. So if you're just started on your project, make sure you've got hold of your CCF application. That will cover exactly these points: who you are, what you're doing, and some of the activities you're running. So get hold of that application. It's an absolute mine of information. Another thing to think about is if your project activities are being delivered differently during COVID-19, you need to include that in your message and ask as well. And that's where it's important to review things regularly. It's easy to leave updates on your website or something, but refer to something from last week. It's a very easy trap to fall into. So keep on updating your ask, updating your message as required. I mentioned the elevator pitch exercise earlier. It's a business term for a super concise and clear pitch about your project. It's a good idea to create your own elevator pitch. Again, refer to your CCF application for who you are, what you're doing, where and when, etc. You can use the template of the elevator pitch to clarify your message and the ask for your project. It's important, obviously, to develop different elevator pitches according to who you're speaking with and the time you have available. It's very different speaking to someone who you might have 60 seconds with walking up some stairs to if you're asked to stand up and speak at a breakfast meeting, for example, for 5 minutes. So you want to develop different pitches according to your audience. I'd say the template is also really useful for developing written copy to summarize your project. This is stuff you could put on your website, you could put it on your social media feeds, and you could send it out when people ask for more information on your project. Again, you might want to develop different versions of this copy, say a long version for a long website news story, a shorter version for a newsletter story, and so on and so on. As with all these exercises, they're available directly on a website, and you'll be able to click through on that PDF I keep mentioning. This is a really good exercise to try with your other project staff, with volunteers, so do look it up. Next, it's really important to kind of think about who you're communicating with. So before you start your communications activity, think who your targets are and who can help you to get there. So we've got an exercise again that you can take back and work with project staff volunteers, where you map your circles of influence. So it's looking at what individuals and organisations in your community could help you to promote your project. And refer to your CCF application, because that will tell you exactly the community you're funded to work with, and it will contain all the details of your partners as well. So it's nicely laid out there for you already. But it's important to get all your project staff on board with this and all your volunteers as well. If you're all going in different directions and you're not too sure who's communicating with who, you might double up on things, you might miss someone, or you might give a different message to the same person, which can be super confusing. Again, that's available on our website. The progress check. So section 1 of a progress check is something that you'd be looking at to complete here if you're reviewing the PDF of these slides later. So go back and have a look at which areas of this presentation you're confident with already, and also those you want to improve. So creating stuff is our next section. But before you create any project resources, please do ensure that you follow our Climate Challenge Fund branding and promotional requirements. We have requirements for online material, for print material, for press releases, for job adverts, and other promotional materials. The guidelines are summarised in a super concise guide on our website. Again, you can access this directly in the PDF via the link outlined below. These requirements aren't just kind of stop you getting on with things at all. they're just to ensure a kind of consistent look and to acknowledge the funding from Scottish Government, the Climate Challenge Fund. As a kind of key, very quick reference without looking at that guide, you'd want the Greener Scotland logo bottom right, you want the Climate Challenge Fund logo bottom left. When you print stuff, you can put your own logo in the middle. And we've got lots of templates and things to support you doing that. So we've got preset downloadable logos for you to download in different sizes, everything from A5 up to I think A1 off the top of my head. And we've also got editable templates for posters, leaflets and press releases as well. So they come with an image at the top. You just insert your project name, you insert your organization and insert how people can find out more on your website. You can put your logo in the middle just there. As you can see, Greener Scotland logo bottom left, Climate Challenge Fund logo. Greener Scotland logo bottom right, Climate Challenge Fund logo bottom left there. Please do make use of these templates. We've also got templates which have a blank space instead of an image, so you can insert your own image. They have also ones which just have the logos, so you can use the logos correctly positioned, then put your own materials in. Again, it's kind of there just to make your life a little bit easier. We do encourage you, if you want to create your own materials though, but just do please read the brand guidelines first. They're there to help you kind of throughout everything you produce. Before you create any climate change resources, we have these available via our CCF website too. We have a guide to climate change leaflet that's available in PDF form and also a print ready format, and it looks exactly like this. We've had lots of projects who've actually printed this out themselves. It's a little A5 booklet, and then they've handed it out to their communities. That's exactly what it's for. We've also got projects who've printed it and used it as big posters or even in exhibitions and things. So the way the print ready format is designed, it should print at pretty much any size and scale to it for you. So you can use it for posters and stuff as well. Each page of the guide, which sets out a different element of climate change and ways to tackle it. So look that guide up, it's super useful. We've also got a very comprehensive guide to carbon literacy on our website. Do have a look at that. You can access all of these resources on our website at the web link just below. And other resources. So there's an awful lot of other resources out there. So please don't reinvent the wheel if at all possible. We have lots of partners who we work with and make their resources available. Zero Waste Scotland, for example, have this fantastic repair and share guide. There's physical copies of pretty much all the leaflets on this table that they can supply to you, and we have stocks of as well, which we will be able to get out to you after COVID, hopefully. But there's also lots of stuff online available, which you could include links to on your website if you're looking for materials. And you can find all of this information on our website at the web address below. It's on the third-party resources section of the CCF website. We've ordered everything up by theme of project, so you'll find it easier to find what you're looking for. And as I mentioned before, we have a grantee forum on Microsoft Teams for sharing of resources. Please do ask your development officer for access if you're not in that forum already. There's some really great resources being shared there, not just by CCF grant recipients. We share stuff from Keep Scotland Beautiful as well. And we've got partners such as Home Energy Scotland in there sharing their stuff too. So we're going to speak about creating an online presence next. So there are hundreds, probably thousands of online platforms out there. It can be really daunting to dip your toe into the water of starting an online presence. We're going to give you a kind of very top level view here. There's lots more than we'll obviously mention out there. So some popular starting points. Your website, if you want one of those, that's going to host your news, your resources, your events and things. They're generally, there's some very easy platforms to get out there like WordPress so you can get started, but you might find a website more work than Facebook. So if you think, well, I've not got the skills quite to get a website put together, I might not have a chance to update it. Okay, maybe have a look at Facebook, similar platform to kind of host your news, views and events and things. Twitter as well, you can share your news there on social media. And there's also Audio Boom, where you can actually record and host audio clips that you've recorded from different stuff. We've got homes for all your videos and things in YouTube and Vimeo. And here's a story just on our website that we shared about the Scottish Workplace Challenge with some very happy staff members who took part in it there. Top tips for creating an online presence. Make sure you choose platforms that your audience use already. There's not much point in choosing a platform that your audience aren't engaged with because they won't hear you. And also always ensure that you have time to update your information regularly. You might think, oh no, you know what, I'm going to jump on all of these platforms you've mentioned here, and I'm going to use TikTok, and I'm going to use Instagram. Then you actually go to start your outreach on those platforms and go, I haven't quite got time to do that. So make sure you kind of allocate enough time and resource to each of them. Creating print. This can be an effective route to promote your project, but always plan ahead, because the second something, a piece of ink gets dropped on a piece of paper, there's the old adage that it's out of date. So have a think about how you can make your print last longer. Remember to include your message and your ask on it. That's who you are, what you're doing, where, when and why, and what you want people to do, how they can become involved and stuff like that. There's a nice example here from Bike for Good, who've included information about their bike breakfast, where people got a free coffee and breakfast, big coffee cup there, if they chose active travel for their journey to school. It's very simple, use of colours quite nice, it gets the job done. And they put this up in all the places where people who were going to be taking that journey, i.e. school, could see it. So good plan there. Top tips. If you're thinking COVID-19 might impact your future activities, remember to include a plan B on your print. It might be that restrictions are eased and tightened for quite a while yet. So if you're producing any print and putting it out there in the future, have a think about, rather than putting a date from the event or something, you could just put a website link to say find out more here, or have perhaps an online backup in case your physical events can't run. Sustainable print. This should be an absolute priority for your project. If you're producing any print at all, make sure it's sustainable. Some quick guide to it here. And this is whether you're using a commercial print house or printing in-house. You want your paper to be recycled or Forest Stewardship Council certified. You want the ink that's on your paper to be vegetable inks, which is manufactured with a non-chlorinated process. It's also worth thinking about the carbon when you produce your print. There are various carbon neutral options, so ask your printer about that. Can you have a carbon neutral print run? It's also important to think on a similar subject about travel. So have your paper manufactured from materials as close as possible to where you are. For example, if it's coming from the other side of the world, you'll have transport emissions all the way from where it's manufactured to where you are. And think about where your print house is. Are they just down the road from you? So the carbon emissions of them to you will be very short, or are they in another country or something, in case there'll be huge carbon emissions transporting their stuff to you? It's also worth having a think about if they're ISO accredited, so just if they've got some kind of environmental planning and stuff in place to protect the environment as they produce their print. And always include information on your documents to let people know how and why your print is sustainable. And we include quite a lot of stuff on our print. And it's important to note it differs between what you'll be producing, maybe with a print company where you might have the FSC logo on it or something, a certain certification, to what you're printing in-house, because you might use different paper there. So bear that type of thing in mind. We often include this line on it just at the bottom. The carbon emissions generated by printing will be offset by planting broadleaf trees in a local community woodland. So the printer we work with, that's what they do to offset the print we produce through the Climate Challenge Fund through them. So we're going to cover how to get the actual word out to your community now. One of the most effective ways to do this is through word of mouth. It's simply chatting about your project and your local area, and you'd be surprised how much this can raise the profile of the work that you're doing. Gorbals Healthy Living Network in Glasgow, they actually knocked on the doors of local residents, and it substantially raised awareness of their Greener Gorbals project and support for the project as well. They found that some challenges they'd had with the site usage of the site area were resolved. They also found there were lots more people getting involved in the composting activities and knowing about the work they were doing. So yeah, a really strong way to get people involved with your project. But during COVID-19, word of mouth might be something you find really challenging to do, especially with the current restrictions. So think about alternatives to this. Are there online influencers in your area where you could share news of your project and have them then share it on your behalf? That can work quite effectively. Websites. So we talked a while ago about these being a place to host information on your project. How do you actually start getting the word out there and sharing it? Think about going for very clear text, if at all possible. Don't have never-ending paragraphs and things, break things up, use bullet points, headings, and colour fonts where appropriate and things. Be concise as well and get to the point, have clear asks. Things you might want to include, obviously regular updates about your Climate Challenge Fund project. Remember to include your message and your ask prominently. You might also want to include news and views and things from other platforms. We'll cover those later in the newsletter section and outline some good ones. Ease of access. An awful lot of people access things on tablets or small mobile screens now. So if you've got a website, it's worth seeing if you've got a preview function, so you can have a look if your web page looks and does and performs well on a mobile. Traffic to your website, believe it or not, once you get traffic to your website, people coming to visit it, this will drive more people to come and visit it. A simple way to do this is share links to your web pages often. Do it via your social media feeds, do it to partners via email, share it in your newsletters, lots of different ways to get people to come to your website. And you'll see yourself kind of moving up the search rankings then. So when people look for community growing projects in Glasgow, you might pop up near the top of the rankings. There's something else called meta tags. You can use these on your pages to clearly describe your content. In very, very, very short terms, it will cover the amount of words you can use, and that will help people to find your content as well. You'll often see it at the bottom of descriptions on Facebook and things. You'll see the meta tag that people have put on that page. You could also think about having your site crawled by Google, which will help it identify stuff on your pages going on, and perhaps using Google AdWords if you've got some marketing budget there to put keywords in so people can find out more about you. Top tips here. Remember to include prominent updates on your website about your activities during COVID-19 so that folk in your community know what's going on. Someone might know that you've got a project which has started, been funded through the Climate Challenge Fund, and that you're going to have a community garden with lots of growing sessions going on. But if you can't run those sessions until sometime later in the year, or perhaps even early next year, you'll want to tell people what's going on in the interim. So, for example, you can join our growing session via Zoom and get involved that way. Or get a listing of people who are interested in your project and say you can sign up to our newsletter for updates to become informed. Facebook. This can be a really powerful tool to reach your community and way, way beyond. We found it really effective throughout our promotion at Keep Scotland Beautiful for different things. Here's an example of our Climate Heroes, which we recently launched during Volunteers Week. Just an ask out here. If you do have an amazing volunteer at your Climate Challenge Fund project, please do nominate them for the Climate Heroes Awards. Check it out on our website at keepscotlandbeautiful.org/CCF Awards. What are you using Facebook to do? Well, ideally you're sharing 1 or 2 short updates a day. Images helps your post kind of reach further, or a collage of images will help it reach further as well. Try to include engaging images where you can that are really linked to your text. It can be hard to do sometimes. You could give live updates from your project, from your allotment or something via Facebook Live. These can go down quite well. It's also important to share news from others for Facebook. So it's basically social networking. So you'll want to network with others and share their news on your Facebook page. You might even have budget in your CCF project, a budget line, so you can pay for promotion. These promoted posts, you can target them specifically at your audience. You can drill down pretty much to geographical area, which is helpful, or kind of interest as well. So you get the kind of right people that you want for your project. Please do tag Climate Challenge Fund on Facebook and use the hashtag Climate Challenge Fund so that we can kind of see your updates. It's also worth tagging other partners as well, because they might share your news too. Top tips for Facebook. Always have enough staff members with logins to admin your account. That's one key thing. There's nothing worse than seeing a social media account which hasn't had any updates for 4 or 5 months. People might think your project's completely stopped. And also have enough time to actually interact with your community. So if people are asking questions, for example, you'll want to have enough capacity to actually get back to them in a timely fashion. Fortunately, with social media, people expect answers almost instantly sometimes, so that can be a real challenge. You might want to put opening hours on your Facebook page so people have a kind of expectation of how long it's going to take you to get back to them. I've talked about Facebook pages here mainly, but you might also want to consider starting a Facebook group. CCF projects like Belleville have started really, really amazing Facebook groups where they join together with everyone kind of associated with the project, their community. And unlike Facebook pages where you're posting directly, you have control of the page basically. Groups can open it up completely so anyone can post. So it's a much more equal forum to share news and stuff. So have a think about having a Facebook group. You might be surprised how much discussion and how much sharing that can generate. Twitter. It can provide an easy route to share information and also see the latest trends, which are kind of outlined on the right-hand side of the feed. Twitter's a bit different to Facebook. You will see lots and lots and lots of updates being shared on it. It can be quite intimidating when you go on and you just see the scrolling of the news going on and go, whoa. But yeah, share updates on your activities here and also retweet the activities of others, maybe with a comment and things. You could live tweet from events once we're hopefully out and about again, or just live tweet from what you are doing during lockdown. Again, engaging images can go a long way here. An image really does tell 1,000 words sometimes. So take some time and think of an image that you could attach to your post. Sometimes an image can actually be the tweet of the story itself. There's also software available to help you manage Twitter called Hootsuite. There's other software available. You can actually schedule tweets through this. So you could schedule them for tomorrow evening, for example, or you could duplicate your tweets and put them out for the next month, for example, on a Tuesday at 11 AM. So they're going standard saying, why don't you sign up for our newsletter? That can save you a lot of work, but it's really important that you make sure that all your tweets going out, the planned tweets, actually refer to your correct activity. If you're tweeting about a webinar and you're doing it for the next month, for example, then suddenly you have to pull that webinar or reorganize it. You don't want your tweets going out saying, hey, sign up for this webinar when it's no longer happening. So make sure that you've got a really good handle on what scheduled activities going out. A really neat function on Hootsuite is that you can set up lists of people that you want to follow. So it might be that you're interested in travel projects, for example, in Highland. So you could go into Twitter, kind of find all your people you're interested in and add them to a list. So whenever these guys post up anything, it will pop up directly in one of your feeds in Hootsuite. We've got lists of current Climate Challenge Fund grant recipients, for example, and we've got lists of other organisations involved, travel, food and things, and we find that's really helpful sometimes. So here's a tweet by Repair Cafe Glasgow. This is where they use Twitter just to direct people to their newsletter. They did it with a really effective image, I think, actually, just with a post-it note kind of faked on the top saying, join the conversation, subscribe to our newsletter. And things like that, you can bounce your other kind of outreach methods from your social media. So direct people to your website from Facebook, from Twitter, direct people to your newsletter from Facebook, from Twitter. Top tips, again, it's about time. You'll need time to admin your account properly and to interact when people start commenting on your tweets and things. We mentioned audio clips and podcasts earlier. So many people like to listen to audio without the kind of visual stuff when they're walking, for example, or perhaps when they're cooking. You can actually record interviews via your smartphone. You can do that live. It also works surprisingly well if you have someone on speakerphone. And then you can upload it to something like Audio Boom or SoundCloud, and then have it there and share it via your website, via your social media feeds as a link. It's great for snippets of audio or quick interviews. We did interviews after our Climate Challenge Fund training in previous years, just from participants saying what they'd learnt and things and why it's good to go on the training. Or you might want to think about a regular feature or podcast, so something monthly about your sustainable travel project, something monthly about your energy updates. We've just launched our podcast, It Keeps Scotland Beautiful. Our first issue is on climate change, so do check that out. I'll share a link in my grantee forum and the Scottish climate change community later today. Top tips, it's again about time here. You may need more time than expected if you want to start editing your clips and things. If you just share something you've recorded without any editing, it might be reasonably quick. If you start editing and clipping things and stuff, it can take an absolute age. So have a think about other apps which are available and stuff. If anyone's got any other suggestions for any other platforms as we go along, do write them in the text as we go through this webinar, whether it's a website platform, it's a social media, it's video or anything else. Please do share it as you're going along the chat field so that people can benefit from your experience as well. So videos our next section. You'll want to actually share your video content once you've posted it on a platform like YouTube or Vimeo. Common ways to do this is included by embedding your video into your website and directly into a web page so it runs when you click play, or through your Facebook and Twitter and other social media posts. Some tips here. It's a good idea to use longer films on your website so people come there for your in-depth features and things, and maybe have the shorter clips for social media where people might have, how should we say it, perhaps a little less attention span at periods. We've all clicked on things and got impatient at time to time, so keep your clips on social media quite short. Video is becoming a very important method of communication during COVID-19. People crave face-to-face contact, most people do. And so if you can have video there where you see someone talking, or even better, interacting with someone, it's a nice way to communicate with people. Here's our Climate Challenge Fund Awards winners compilation from 2017. We produced a 5-minute video, I think, which highlighted all the award winners. But we also produced 60-second clips of each award winner as well, which meant we had much more content, for one thing, which was really nice. But the main thing was it meant it gave a feature for each of the award winners, and we could tag them when we shared it on social media and things. They had their own little kind of film, which was nice. We shared the longer film, mainly on our website and things, and then released the shorter films week by week on social media. Top tips, again, it's about time here. Editing of videos can absolutely eat your day. So again, You might want to consider producing short videos using some different apps and things. There's stuff called TikTok out there, there's Facebook Live. Again, please put details in the chat field as we go along here of any other things you're using which is really effective and easy to use. Back to a super traditional kind of outreach method now, notice boards and flyers. So for local projects where you're dealing with a geographical community in a certain area, notice boards can be an amazingly effective way in reaching people. Places for flyers, community councils, notice boards, local shop, post office, leisure centres, library. We've had people suggesting toilets before as well and other public buildings. Yeah, all of those. Obviously, at the moment, it's really tough. We wouldn't want, we'd encourage not to loiter in supermarkets, etc. So people wouldn't be looking at a notice board so much. You wouldn't want someone perhaps touching your flyer and things like in this image and stuff. But hopefully post-COVID, this will again become an effective method for you to communicate more about your project. A top tip here will be, so having your office and other sites where your project's running from, if they're closed during COVID-19, which understandably they might be, perhaps have a notice up where people can find information on your activities which are taking place during COVID-19. So say, for example, this site's closed till further notice, find out more on our website or on our Facebook and include the URL. And if you can't use these physical notice boards, you might want to think about online notice boards. There's an absolute stack of those. They're almost like events listings sometimes, and there's various different notice boards run by third sector interfaces, your local council, and an absolute myriad of different ones by like papers and things as well. So check that out. Newsletters. If you don't have a newsletter about your project, I'd advise it's a really good idea to have a good think about one, because a regular newsletter, that can be a really good way of keeping your community informed about your project for number one, but also building your audience. So you've got an audience there almost in the bag who are interested about your project and wanting to be informed about it. Things to think about for your newsletter. We'd advise to create it online through MailChimp or a similar online program. It creates a really nice user-friendly interface where you can create a nice looking newsletter that's easy to read. Include a sign-up option on your website to your online newsletter, and also highlight this sign-up to your newsletter through lots of different channels, like your social media channels, for example. What do you include in your newsletter? Well, include asks about people, about what you want people to do with your project, how they can become involved, what they can learn, where they can learn it, what they'll get out of it. Include upcoming events you might have, be it physical or online. Include news from partners as well. People often like to hear this, and you might be able to share your news with your partners as well, which is a nice kind of relationship going on there. You might also want to share climate change news through your newsletter and your other channels. Where's it best to pick this type of news from? Well, there's a lot of different updates you can get, which have some really interesting news about climate change. Just a few I would like to mention here. Carbon Brief do a daily update. You can sign up for that and get that into your inbox every morning. There's eddy.net. They do a really good kind of sustainability newsletter, which has a good climate feature as well. And there's more obvious ones like The Guardian and the BBC as well, which often feature environmental and climate change articles. One thing I found is it's often interesting to actually click through these links, maybe share the news story, but have a look at the research behind it, which is being published. See where it's actually come from, see the actual root of these stories sometimes. And you might find some interesting further articles there, and have a more understanding of what's actually being communicated. Obviously for updates and things too, it's good to check out the Scottish Government website and other policy kind of feeds and stuff, so you know what's going on at a policy and government level. The Greener Scotland website too is a really nice thing to share with lots of easy activities people can follow to lead a greener life. That's our Climate Challenge Fund newsletter there. and that goes out quarterly. There's also, you can sign up via the homepage of the Climate Challenge Fund website. We also have the capacity building program newsletter. That's kind of more targeted at CCF grant recipients only. There's a sign up to that on our website as well, or ask Claire how to sign up if you want further details. Top tips about your newsletters. During COVID-19, people who are joining your online activities, it will be worth asking those people or signposting them to your website or wherever, so that they can sign up for future workshops. So if you ask them to sign up for your newsletter, you can then tell them when you're going to run further workshops. Or if you ask them that if you have permission to inform them once you're running physical workshops, get their details if they're willing to share them with you, and then let them know post-lockdown when you're running things. Because a lot of people are interested in stuff and they can't do it at the moment due to lockdown. So once you're running physical stuff again, do let them know. Do make sure you've got a kind of bank of people who are interested in your activities, and you'll find it much easier to get started later on. Press releases. These are good for sharing news through the local media, and they can get key news out in your community, but way beyond that as well. Some things to think about. You're going to want to include your local news or activities that people can become involved with locally. It's always key when you're sending a press release out to include the name of the local area you're working in. Always include that. It makes it much more likely the press will feature it. Journalists get stacks and stacks and stacks of press releases a day. As soon as they see something which doesn't have the local area in it or isn't relevant, they'll just won't publish it. So have a think about that. After lockdown, after hopefully post-COVID, you might want to invite people to have a photo opportunity. If you're running a big event or something, get a nice image that the press could come and take a picture of. Set it up at your project. Always have someone available for interview. So a radio station, even the TV, or a local journalist for print media or web media might say, oh, I want to find out more about this. I want to get a comment. So have someone available who can give that comment, who knows about the press release, and have them available out of hours as well, if at all possible. The press can call at various antisocial times sometimes, so be prepared for that if you can. And it's really important to know your local paper deadlines and also your contacts. If you're running a big event on the 15th of September and you go to submit your story to your local paper 5 days in advance and it's a weekly paper, it's likely you won't get published. So have a think about when you want to get in your local paper. You might want to drip feed the story in, say there's this event going on, there'll be further details later, then say, oh, and here's the date in your next article, and then do a wrap up of it with a photo afterwards. Papers can be keen on that sometimes. Also get to know a local contact at your paper. If you have a named contact with their mobile number, you can just call them up and say, hey, we've got this story, you interested? You might want to meet them for a cup of coffee or something, so they can find out more about your project. Give them a tour around or something. Things like that can work really well. But always be prepared to kind of only share the information you want to share in your press release. If you're asked for a statement or something, if you're asked questions you don't want to answer, always go back to your press release and say, hey, this is what we're talking about here. I was saying featuring a photo opportunity. This is the launch of the 1,000th Climate Challenge Fund project to be awarded funding, which is Bike for Good in Glasgow. As well as the kind of photo opportunity with the First Minister here, we actually had a kind of thing where the First Minister actually got on a smoothie bike and had a pedal of that at the launch event at Wellshot Primary School. And that was absolutely loved by the media, and it generated substantial media coverage. So think about fun things you can do as well. It got featured as a kind of short video clip too. So we have press release templates available on our website. They contain all the relevant text you'll need. You just need to drop in your organisation name, your project name and dates and stuff. They also have the notes to editors section included as well, which is the section where you give facts and figures almost about your project. The templates cover events you might hold, or even if you've not announced your grant award yet, you might want to do that at some point post-lockdown, and they can easily be kind of tweaked for other purposes. If you're writing a press release, or if you're using our templates, please do give us a shout. Our details are in the press release template, and we'll be very pleased to provide you with a quote from the Climate Challenge Fund. And you can have a go at completing a press release template at the link just here. So I do encourage you, another thing, take that back to your project and go, okay, what's going to be our next thing? That's a kind of newsworthy opportunity. What do we want to share? Let's get together. Let's fill in this template or write our own press release and get ready for kind of sending that. Paid for advertising. You can achieve loads and loads of promotion for free. There's no doubt about that. But adverts in local media can work well too, if you've got a budget headline for that in your Climate Challenge Fund project. For advertising, you're obviously going to include your message, what you're trying to get across, and your ask. You'll want to think about including interesting local information that people can get involved with. It's pretty pointless including news about an event in the wrong area. And you're going to want to plan your timings very carefully too. Again, exactly the same if you're using print media or even online media. You're going to want to advertise your event or your promotion in plenty of time so that people have plenty of time to hear about it. Again, get to know your local media contacts. It can really help to have a named contact to speak to. Negotiation. You'll probably be offered a rate card price first of all, that I would encourage you to negotiate on. You might want to say, okay, we'll pay your rate card price, but it's not just for one feature. We want 4 quarterly features throughout the year on our project for that price. Or you might want to look at something like an advertorial, like an advert write-up about your project, which covers almost a whole page in a paper. These can be really nice features and really nice reading for people. Top tips. Don't forget online advertising such as Facebook. That can be a really effective and quick way to reach your targeted audience. It is becoming a little more challenging to advertise on Facebook now. They've brought in lots of different kind of rules and controls. So have a look at that. If anyone's got any experience they'd like to share, again, of effective advertising or anything, type it in the comments section as we're going along, share it in the grantees forum, etc. That would be great to hear. So our progress check now. If you're kind of going through this later of your projects and things, do download the progress check and identify areas where you're kind of confident here and those which you might want to improve. So events, physical events, but also particularly during COVID, online events. These are really important in bringing your community together and offering chances for your community to meet your project staff for one and demonstrate your activities. Actually help people say, this is what we're about. These are the energy efficiency visits that you can take part in. This is our community garden where you can come and learn about how to compost, how to grow your own food. This is our travel hub where you can come and learn how to ride a bike and repair stuff. So for your own events, you might want to think about holding a launch eventually. You could have an open day or workshops. Make sure the timing of your event is suitable for your audience and your community. If your community isn't around during the day, for example, they work 9 to 5, it'll be pretty pointless holding an event at 1 p.m. Likewise, if you find your community is busy at weekends, you might want to hold an event in the week. So you might want to ask people when would work best for them as well. Always advertise your event well in advance, and it's useful to have online sign-ups as well. This will give you an idea of how many people you can expect. This is helpful, especially if you're ordering catering. We often use Eventbrite for sign-ups. We find that people who sign up for Eventbrite often or usually show for the event. If you're using something on social media like Facebook, you might find that many, many more people sign up for your event than actually show up. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword there. What to include at your event? Well, include loads of interesting activities that people can get involved with. Hands-on stuff will be great post-COVID, hopefully. Not at the moment, though. You'll want asks as well. You'll want sign-ups and things, so people can sign up for your newsletter, they can sign up for a home energy visit and things, and food can go an absolute mile encouraging people to come along, and also the kind of chat as well. It brings people together and starts conversations. Obviously, locally sourced, sustainable food is what you want at these events. Partner events. So attending events almost piggybacking on events run by partners. This can take lots less organising, but do still advertise your attendance in advance, and you'll want to include your usual activities and sign-ups and things as well. This is an event which was launched to kind of celebrate the reuse shop opened in Cooper Angus. John Swinney MSP attended that one. It was quite a nice little event where got advertised in advance, and it really gives the kind of feel for what's going on with project activities and what else they're doing. Top tips for events and things. During COVID-19, you're obviously going to want to think about how you can run your events online. We mentioned some of those different options earlier. You might have a webinar repair workshop, a networking event, it might be a climate change training session. There's so many options out there for you to hold these events, whether it's Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Facebook Live. If you've got anything which has been really successful in holding an online event, again, please share it in the comments section as we go along. Share it on the grantee forum, share it on our Scottish Climate Change Community Facebook group, help others out by sharing your good experience. So I think we've all been to events where we go there, we have a chat to lots of people for a lot of time, but you might leave kind of going, well, I've not really achieved anything concrete. What have I actually got out of this event? So we've really advise you to create a clear plan for your attendance at these events. It will help you to know what to take to the events in terms of physical stuff and what kind of sign-ups you'll need and things as well. You can practice doing this using the engagement planning tool, which we've got a checklist you can complete for your events. That's available on our CCF website. So take that back to your projects, to your staff, to your volunteers, and have a look at that together and go, okay, hopefully post-lockdown, post-COVID, when we're hopefully going to events again, what do we need to do and what events should we select as well? You might not be able to go to every event you're invited to, and this planning tool should help you to choose the most effective event. We're going towards the end now, and this is about where we think about really looking after the people who are engaging with our project. Hopefully by this point you'll have got loads of people involved in your project for all these different methods we've mentioned today, but you'll want to have a plan so that everyone who wants to become involved has a positive experience and they know what to expect. That means that everyone will be happy and what comes out of it. So you're going to need to create a plan for your project participants, and it needs clear routes that they can participate by, and there'll be different journeys for different people, and this can be quite hard to get your head around sometimes, so you might need almost like a flow chart for it. For example, someone who signs up to receive a home energy advice visit, they might have different expectations of what will happen with the project to someone who registers to volunteer with you. So you'll need different journeys for each of these people, but hopefully that person who has a home energy advice visit will be so enamored with the great advice you give, with the project, with you tackling climate change, but they might want to volunteer as well. So you need to bear that type of thing in mind as well. So we've got this participant journey activity. It's available on the CCF website at the same URL as all the other activities. Have a look at that for your projects as well, and kind of develop a participant journey for your community. Top tip here, during COVID-19, you'll need to have many different options available for your journeys, unfortunately, that do match the current guidelines for social distancing and stuff. Appreciate this is not easy, it's a real challenge, but it's something you'll need to think about. Progress check. So if you're reviewing your progress against the different slides here, have a think about completing section 3 of a progress check. That's again available for download via the same link as all the other activities. So a bit of a wrap up now, and a summary from what we've learned about today. Number one, always have a clear message and ask for your project. If you've not established this already, do it now, and make sure that you tweak it as you go along, especially with COVID-19. You'll have to tweak things regularly with your asks probably. You can use this above message and ask to create your resources, but please don't reinvent the wheel. Don't spend lots of time doing that. Check our brand guidelines, check our templates, check our climate change resources, check the resource partners. They're all there to help you. Make sure that you know your audience in your community and where to find your audience, whether that's physically in your local community in different spaces, or whether it's online. And make sure you get your word out in a way that will reach your audience. It's absolutely pointless communicating on Facebook to an audience which communicates verbally or via Twitter, for example. Plan for your events and your meetings. That will help make them very effective. And make sure you look after your participants on their journey. Anyone who wants to be engaged with your project, make sure that it's a positive experience for them, and that both they and your project staff and volunteers, they all know what to expect when they engage with you. So we do have also a guide which provides a concise summary of some of the key points. That's available of exactly the same web link as all our activities, and it's just a one-sider on promoting your climate challenge fund project. It doesn't have specific advice on COVID here, but it does cover lots of points from today's workshop. And on the reverse of it, it has some many case studies of CCF projects that have promoted their activities effectively. So contacts, website, that's the homepage of our CCF website. Go to that to get our main kind of headline information and links to everything else. This is the website link to our CCF toolkit. That's where you find all the information about running your CCF project and resources if you're a current CCF grant recipient, so head over to that. We have our CCF branding part of our website. That's got all of this webinar presentation and all of the activities I mentioned today are sitting happily there. And the branding support section of the website has a direct access to all our brand guidelines and all the templates like the posters, the press releases and things. That's sitting on that web page there. You can get in touch with me by email, tim.mullins@keepscotlandbeautiful.org, and my colleague Claire, who you heard from earlier, claire.gibson@keepscotlandbeautiful.org as well. I'm kind of going to leave you here with 3 questions before we have our Q&A. And we'll pick up questions that have been asked in the text field throughout the presentation. Also 3 questions for you if you've not kind of got anything you want to ask so far. Is number 1, do you know where to find the resources you need to promote your project? Number 2, what actions will you take next to promote your project? This is a really important one. And I think it's important to involve all your project staff, your volunteers in this planning process, and go back to your application as well and make sure that you're working in the right areas and with the right community. Number 3, is there any further support you would find useful? I realise there's been a lot of information presented today, a lot of kind of headline information. If you want to discuss any aspects further, contact me in the grantee forum. We can do a video call there. Send me an email, or we might be able to organise another online session on specific elements if we get enough interest. So that's pretty much me for today for the presentation. Thank you ever so much for dropping by today. I hope you found it useful, and look forward to the Q&A in a few minutes. Thank you.